and welcome to the Game Informer Show. I am your host, Ben Hanson, joined by the great Tim Turi on the end there.
Oh, that's really nice of you to say that. I'm great.
Thank you.
You're all right.
Thank you very so much. We also have the one-of-a-kind Jeff Marchiafava.
That's me.
And the surly, laughy Joe Juba.
Surly and laughy.
They go together so well.
Yeah. Jeff, you sounded really thrilled to be introduced.
I don't know what to do to that.
Jeff, scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you to be on this podcast today?
I always like being on this podcast.
Oh, that's so
There
sweet.
he is.
It's great.
Look at that.
I've only done it once so far, but everyone loved it. The comment section was just glowing.
Parents
Jeff,
couldn't have been more
right.
proud.
I didn't think Chance could get started in the comments section, but somehow it just erupted.
Yep.
So we got a hell of a show today, just a hell of a show. We have Jeff talking about Until Dawn. I'm going to talk about some old games that have been re-released, and that's about it. Then we're going to wrap it up with some reader emails. Oh, wait, no.
No, that's good. That's good.
I forgot about the big monster in the room.
Yeah.
Kept us waiting.
Joe Juba.
Kept you waiting, huh?
Joe Juba.
Yeah, we've got Metal Gear Solid 5. I reviewed it. I've put like 50 plus hours into it at this point.
Good God.
So we can talk a little bit about that.
I am so excited. Joe, I love that inside your mind right now, you know everything about Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah, man, you might be a little disappointed because there are a lot of things that I won't be able to talk about.
Okay.
Or maybe not a lot, but there are definitely certain things that I won't be able to talk about. And not only that I won't even want to give a hint one way or the other on. So sometimes I might just refuse to answer a question or go someplace. Just so,
So it's not that you won't be able to, you just refuse to, right?
As a personal slight to Ben.
Exactly. No, that there are actually certain things that, like, due to embargo, I actually cannot talk about.
Oh, because
And
of
then-
that doo-doo embargo?
And then
Duty embargo.
And then there are other things that just, for the sake of mystery or whatever, that I
don't want to
Right.
I'd just rather steer clear of.
Well, let's hold on that because I'm super excited about that. And if we go for Metal Gear Solid first, I won't give a crap about Until Dawn. But I'm going to feign interest in Jeffum's little cute adventure game for a little
Yay.
while. You reviewed Until Dawn, which is this horror game on PS4.
Yes.
I feel like it's been pretty under the radar, and then suddenly people started playing it last week, and everyone kind of looked around and was like, hey, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know if it was under the radar so much as people thought it was going to be super crappy because it was,
PlayStation Move.
originally announced in 2012, for PlayStation Move back on PS3.
Really? I forgot all that.
And it has changed a lot since then. So I didn't have high expectations going into it, but ended up loving it. And Tim did too, didn't he?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get a copy in advance and played through it as well. Not that it takes forever. It's like, what are you looking at? Like 7 hours?
Yeah. I think it took me about 10, but I was playing, more slowly and taking notes and stuff.
And I think we played through all of it on a live stream, so you can check out our archive of that.
I was what Ben was saying, basically. I wasn't looking forward to it. I thought it was going to be bad. And then I played it at E3, and I was really surprised. Like, they chose this really unique scene to show where these two people are, like, on this cliff, kind of, we can either jump off or there's all these deer walking towards us. And it's just this weird way
The deer scene.
Yeah, it's just like, you're kind of walking through. It's like, okay, I can either use this axe on any one of these deer's heads or just try to wade through it, see what happens. You don't know what's going to happen. And it was just an odd thing. It ends with you, like, being attacked by the killer in a radio tower.
I like that. It sounds so much more captivating than I thought. It's like it just the footage I saw at PSX last year. It was like some lady in a towel in a house getting chased around by some murderer, and it's like pretty forgettable to me. But they do have killer deer. Now I'm fully on board.
It has a lot of it's been hanging its hat on a lot of those classic slasher film, like Saw movie kind of tropes.
Oh, like Saw 9, Attack of the Deer.
Right. Those are in there, but there is more to it that is worth not revealing.
It does a really good job of, if you're a horror fan, of horror films specifically, of kind of putting you in those premises that you are very, that you know a lot. And
Where'd that scream come from?
Yeah, but then you actually get to play through it in a way that, actually feels like you are affecting the story.
So you'd say that if you're someone who's watched a lot of, like, slasher movies, it does sort of reward that knowledge or have nods to people who are a fan of that genre.
Yeah, you'll recognize some stuff in the narrative, but then there are also certain choices where if you have watched a lot of those films, you will do better than idiots who are going to fall for some certain things.
It's an interesting thing too. I was asked by someone on Twitter if this is like an awesome horror game, and like I talked to a lot of people about horror games on Twitter. I like horror games a lot, but this game is not like this. Isn't if you love Resident Evil and Silent Hill and Evil Within, it's not for specifically for those people. If you like horror in general, it's great, but it's like a Telltale formula with less of a focus on dialogue, but taken to like the nth degree. Like it looks good. The characters, like it looks really good. I really want to emphasize that, and the choices seem like they actually are more meaningful and varied.
Yeah.
Are they actually like gameplay choices, like choose to run this way or this way, or is it just prompt up, hit circle or X?
No, it's a mix of both. Yeah,
Okay.
And your dialogue, affects future events and like the relationships that you have with all the characters and stuff. The big kind of selling point is that all of the 8 main characters in the game can live or die based on the decisions that you're making. So it still walks you through, the basic narrative arc is still going to be the same for everyone. And that's actually good because they actually wrote, an interesting story that has, twists that you couldn't pull off if you were completely shaping everything yourself. But then, every single character lives or dies based on the decisions that you make along the way. And so you get to the point where you have figured out the mystery, and then the real fun of it is like seeing how many people you can keep alive until the end.
At the end, during the credits, this isn't a spoiler, but like you'll get like exit interviews with these people that lived. So you'll get like a little bit fuller context, and then you'll be wondering like, well, if other people had lived, or if things had gone differently, would they be saying different things now?
It's just like a reality show reunion episode where it's just like them looking into the camera.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of like that. But think about like being taken to the police station after surviving a harrowing event. Ben, you're not someone who's particularly familiar with horror, right?
I mean, I was a film major, so like I'm not a giant fan of horror films. But
wait, how are those related?
I'm just saying, like, there's a certain amount where like you understand conventions. I've seen a lot of horror films.
Okay.
I just won't go out of my way necessarily to watch them.
Okay, maybe you won't like this game.
That's the question. Well, I want to know, like, because Tim, you were saying that it wasn't that scary. Everyone else is saying it's terrifying.
Tim does this with every horror thing.
No, that's not true.
He takes pride in not being
that's
scared
not true
by
at all.
things.
Like PT and The Evil Within scared the crap out of me.
No,
He's also like,
you're
if you
just
orders-
saying that retroactively.
If he orders curry, he gets like a 10 out of 10 on the spiciness level and be like, this isn't hot.
Yeah.
It's just dripping from his forehead.
Blood just streaming from my pores.
This isn't scary, as there's a big expanding wet spot on the front of his pants.
Yeah, so you know how I like my horror and my curry.
Yeah, I would say forget what Tim's going to say because he's just going to try and make himself look good again.
No, I thought it was creepy. There's
there-
some tense moments. I played with my girlfriend. She screamed and like jumped a
Did you
lot.
see your face? Hey, Jeff, how scary is this game?
I just
Yeah,
want to make sure that
no.
I'm completely debunking this thing where I say that games are. I think they're getting
keep
scarier
trying.
and scarier.
Keep trying, Tim. Yeah, they're
Piece of junk.
Piece of junk.
You trash.
That's me. Yeah. No, there are a ton of jump scares. Some of them are as cheap as you expect from horror films. Some of them are done well, and then there are a lot of environments that are genuinely creepy and they build up.
Yeah.
Actual tension through the atmosphere, and the pacing's really well done too.
Okay.
Speaking of the pacing, they do a really interesting thing that reminds me of Silent Hill Shattered Memories, where you check in with like this analyst between things. I can never remember this guy's name, but he's the guy who
Dr.
wants
Hill.
lingonberry pancakes in Fargo. The Swedish dude,
Peter
Right.
Stormare.
opposite Steve Buscemi. Yeah, thank you, Jeff.
What is it, Jeff?
Peter Stormare.
Can you do an
Yeah.
impression of him for us just to help cement it in?
No.
On the audio version? Okay, great.
But anyway, he does like these sort of like check-in things, these analyst things, just kind of like, I don't know. It's hard to describe.
He asks
Kind
you a
of
bunch of
like a
questions during that
psychiatrist.
too that
Okay.
also affect certain elements.
Right.
And that's jumping into the future?
It's
don't know.
unclear. And it's
Okay.
but it's not worth diving too deep into that, except that it is cool.
I would say too that the actual there are like 3 different mysteries that are going on through the story, and they are interesting. You'll probably guess at least one of them if you are a fan of horror movies. But the collectibles that you're getting are basically clues to that mystery, so they're actually compelling. Which usually in adventure games like that you can pretty much skip the collectibles, but I actually felt compelled to try and find them and made some, rookie mistakes because it was like, oh God, I really want to know what that is, even though I probably shouldn't go and do that. And it was cool.
I don't know if it's worth zooming out. You're talking about these collectibles, and they're like totems that reveal things.
Those
about-
too as well.
Yeah, that reveal like potential things that might come to pass. Someone might almost get hurt or act in a certain way, just like a glimpse into the future. and the totems kind of line up with this sort of Native American undercurrent that's going on there with like some. I don't want to go too deep into it, but
Is it like Beyond Two Souls?
You'll never
not
guess
quite
how it
not
affects
quite
the
as subtle
plot.
as Beyond Two Souls.
Okay.
But to zoom it out even further, so it's like a bunch of teenage young adult type people in a cabin in the mountains. It's snowy, stuff like that. Bad things happen. I just want to make sure. I don't think we really covered that, but
I guess not.
it's
Your basic slasher movie premise, of
Right.
just like
They're stuck in a cabin, in the mountain, and then they're also kind of figuring out this older mystery as well and how it ties in.
and you have all your like normal character archetypes and stuff, right?
Absolutely.
What do we got? Hang on, let's start this. Joe, name one. Have you seen any of this game?
I haven't seen any of this.
Okay,
game.
try and guess
You'll
an
still
archetype.
know most of them. Yeah,
Well, okay, so like, is sports guy in?
yeah.
sports guys
Is
there.
hot cheerleader in it?
There are multiple. You
Okay.
could split them.
Nerd version.
Nerd guy. There's a nerd guy.
Yeah.
We'll give you
Okay,
that.
stoner.
No,
There is no stoner,
there's no
and that is
stoner.
a huge omission.
because I
Okay,
didn't see any. I wanted
That dropped at a point.
I wanted
right
to see
there.
some of those sweet bong rips in there. You know, it's
endlessly entertaining.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it seems like they did some of their research anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
Killer
hit 'em,
deer.
but they're also, except for maybe one of them, all irredeemable d-bags. Oh, really? They really nailed that. Where it's just like some of these
Not-
characters.
Not really at all. I guess it
Wow.
depends.
What?
It depends on how
Wow.
you play. I would say, except for one character, there are all of them who can have redeemable moments in the game.
Okay,
Maybe you're just a jerk and you played the game as a jerk, so all the characters ended up being jerks. You big
great
dumb
wait.
jerk.
So they're all just big sweeties in your game, just all big sweethearts helping each other out, being real nice.
A lot of them helped each other out. Yeah.
Learn to appreciate
and they
kindness
have-
when you see it.
No,
Tim.
I don't.
God,
I think
Tim.
we must just have that. Maybe,
Charity is one of the values that goes back and forth depending on the decisions you make.
Maybe we're speaking. Maybe we're speaking to the quality of the varied play styles you can get from this game. Maybe this dumb
Maybe.
argument is just cluing people into like you can get very different
Sure.
outcomes.
Speaking of the variety of
You
minds that can
hostile
exist.
jerk. Jerk Marchiafava, more like
What
it.
happened?
Hey, so
What happened in your life?
you guys talk about how it's a relatively short experience. We don't need to get nitty gritty into the value, but I mean, is it the full $60? Is there plenty of ways to replay it? Is it worth the money? It sounds like a cool experience, but it still seems pretty steep, right?
Yeah, I mean that always depends on who you're talking to. I would say that there are plenty of much longer games that I enjoyed less than this experience. So,
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a
Okay.
lot of games that aren't totally respectful of your time anyway. And on top of that, it's like the replayability. We were talking, like Jeff and I were joking about our super different playthroughs, but if you, why are you chuckling?
As we just joked about. I don't know. Your phrasing made me laugh.
All right, very nice.
previously.
Ben Hanson, everybody. And but regardless, you can play this over and over a lot. It kind of shows off like this butterfly in the beginning of it, just to kind of demonstrate all these weird like alternate paths, branching paths that the story can go down, showing how different it could be. And even it's suggesting maybe that like the conclusion itself could vary, but it seemed like that was pretty
Very
formative.
minor
Yeah.
from what I played, but
Realistically, like, would you play it again? Even though it like gives you that kind of option, like, is it something that you want to go back and try and see how it goes differently?
If this fall wasn't so crowded with releases the way it is, I definitely would. But where I would find myself probably coming back to it is if there were friends that really wanted to check it out, or I know friends that have are big horror movie fans. Sitting down, knowing what you know, and going through it with someone else and working together to kind of make choices would be really a fun way to play
Yeah.
that through again.
that's a fun way. It is a fun game to watch as well. I was watching
Yeah.
the stream before I came down here and was like, oh, it's this part. I really want to see what they do. Of course, Reeve screwed it up, but yeah.
Surprise!
Holding the controller upside down. Who developed this game anyway?
Supermassive Games.
What are they?
They made. I looked at their other games. One was like Start the Party for PlayStation Move. This was a Move game, originally. Remember? So
Unfortunately, that party never started.
yeah, they made that one, and they made a game called Tumble, which was probably the best Move game, but it was kind of like a Jenga game. But it is a huge departure and super impressive for them that they actually pulled it off.
I'm looking forward to you now going back and reviewing the next Telltale game. Having something of this high
Tell me
quality
about it.
in kind of the Telltale vein.
And I really went into it ready to be skeptical about, not having your choices matter like most Telltale games. And I was really impressed with how they pulled it off.
Yeah, that's really the thing about Telltale games lately that have sort of been having me cooling a little bit on that. Is just the idea, like, all of the talk about how choices matter, and then how eventually things just sort of end up just getting funneled into the exact same situation no matter what.
Repeatedly,
Yeah, I think that's the case for their stuff. I've heard good things about Walking Dead Season 2. It's weird that I'm continuing with so many adventure games, but I never finished that. But I heard that actually has like 3 different endings or so by the end of that one, which is confusing for how they carry that into Season 3.
The telltale drop-off that seems to happen sometimes is a weird thing. Like with Walking Dead specifically. Like I loved that first season. For some reason, I only made one episode into Season 2.
Yeah, same with me.
Yeah. Well, we cover Telltale a lot on this show, but something we don't cover nearly enough is Metal Gear Solid.
What about these
all right.
What about those weird games you were talking about?
Let's postpone this Metal Gear Solid talk for a little while. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Well, it's a crazy week for a crazy week for re-releases.
All right.
And so like you have Gears of War Ultimate on Xbox One, which the crazy thing is if you get it on Xbox One, you also get to download Gears 1 through 3 and Judgment for 360 on your Xbox One. It's like
weird.
the backwards compatibility. Just a crazy deal. If you're into Gears, man, seems to be the way to go. Miller seems to be enjoying his time replaying that one. Final Fantasy VII just came out on iOS. Joe, have you followed that?
No.
The weird thing they're doing with that is right in the beginning, they have an option for you so that you can max out all your stats and turn off random battles. And so if you just want to play through like a streamlined version of the story in iOS, you can totally do it.
Huh.
Which
what does it cost? Like $40 on the App Store?
I think it's like 15.
Yeah, it's just.
I wish they'd have that option like the PC version though, because if I replayed 7, I might want to do that just to kind of blast through all the moments again.
I would want to play until the point where like, here's the thing: like if you're gonna play the game, you're gonna hit that point every time you try to like replay a game, where it's just like, okay, I get it, and I'm hitting that point where this would have been still marvelous back then, but I know that things are better now in games, and so I don't have the patience for this. If that function where you could just boost everything up and just walk through existed in more games, I would maybe finish more replays.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That would be awesome.
Stuff call. Also, Mega Man Collection is out this week. I just played it on Steam. Tim, have you checked it out?
The Legacy
at all?
Collection? Yeah. I played it at E3. The most notable thing there, I mean, it looks super good.
Yeah.
It's like pixel perfect, and like if you've ever used like a Retron or something like that to kind of like emulate software on an HD TV where it just looks like a high res like PNG file, like every sharp corner is preserved in those pixels. It looks like that, so it looks and plays really well. The most interesting thing are these challenge kind of remixes that they do, where you might be playing the Mega Man 2 challenge, and here I'm in this tough section in Metal Man stage, and it's going right to the weird, Flash Man part with the instant kill lasers, and you just have to go through this kind of remix of it.
Cool. And actually they also have remixes where it blends different games together.
1 through
so
6,
so it's just like jumping around in that timeline, or they have stuff like beat the Mecha Dragon in 2 minutes,
right?
Stuff like that.
Or Boss Rush, of course.
Yeah.
And they have this. The other big appeal is this huge archive of like, lost Robot Master art or something like that, or just tips and tricks for how to fight certain Robot Masters, and you can jump right into a battle with the Robot Master. It's a lot of that's taken from the Mega Man. I think it's called the Masterworks collection. It was a PlayStation 1 collection that didn't release here.
Okay.
So
yeah, a lot of interesting artwork in there in the museum section. They have like the full music catalog right in the main menus. You can play whatever you want. It's really an impressive package. It kind of reminds me of the amount of effort that went into Rare Replay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but the interesting thing, you talk about how high quality it is visually. You can also, make it so that it's a smaller window and also put like old TV filters on it and stuff too.
Yeah, you could do like the scanline filter for like
Exactly.
arcades, or you could do the sort of like standard definition tube TV with just kind of the blur, and it's like it looks pretty spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I understand Mega Man fans will always feel burned that Capcom's ignoring them so much, but man, I gotta tell you, like with the release of 9 and 10 and the insane amount of fan service that's there, now like this really beautiful repackaging of all that stuff, like, they're doing pretty well.
I mean, just because there's not new Mega Man stuff does not just discount what's going on now. This is cool stuff that they're doing.
Yeah,
Right.
So
absolutely. It's like the Battletoads fans. Just appreciate your Rare Replay and let's move on. But also in re-releasing news, booted up Grandia 2 yesterday, which just came out on Steam. Gung Ho made an HD version of it with Skybox, which is like the team that made the HD version of the Age of Empires games. It's a weird collaboration there. But back in like April, Gung Ho put up a poll saying like, hey, all these Game Arts licenses that we own, what do you guys want to see a re-release of? And Grandia 2 was the top vote getter. So that just came out this week. Joe, do you have thoughts on Grandia 2?
I don't remember Grandia 2 super well. I played 3. I played 3 more.
Okay.
But I guess like my thought on that mainly is just like that's one of those I put that in that tier of JRPG, maybe sort of along the lines of like Shadow Hearts or Ys or something like that, which you know is not one of those like giant big name ones, but still does a lot of really cool things with you know, like with the battle systems, with the stories and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. So I know my friends had it on Dreamcast because all my friends had Dreamcast and I didn't for whatever reason. And so I'd always watch them play it. So I feel like it's that JRPG that always got away from me. Even though they eventually re-released it on PS2, still really excited to see it released on Steam. So it looks pretty good. It's interesting seeing polygons in HD, like that crude polygonal format in HD. Because it just, my mind connects it to just a super crappy indie game now. It's like, oh God. And like the sound effects with every footstep of the main character just sounds so rough. But outside of that, I think it seems like a pretty good port for what I've played so far. It's interesting. So like the main character is something called a Geohound, and it is just exactly a Witcher.
Oh, really?
Like he's a guy who comes into town, everyone's a little bit scared of him, but they need him to help contain the monsters around town. It is bizarre how much Geohounds are just Witchers from the beginning sections.
We're
at
on to
least.
you, CD Projekt Red. You Geohounds, you.
Yeah. So it's funny, I went into Grandia 2 just like I was so excited for Metal Gear coming out soon. I just wanted to get my mind off it for a little bit and boot up Grandia 2. And of course we have Cam Clark, voice of Liquid Snake, as the main character, joined by his bird companion, voiced by the guy who voices Colonel Campbell, and then Jennifer Hale is in there as well.
Oh.
And it's just like the most Metal Gear packed cast.
You can't escape it anyway.
And then there's sequences where Cam Clark is talking to another character, also voiced by Cam Clark.
Oh, I love that.
It is just Cam Clarky as hell.
Was it Donatello?
Yes.
Oh, Leonardo, right?
It is Leonardo.
Yeah, he did.
Well, you set up a really good segue.
I know.
That was really good. I just want to make sure you know that.
Thank you.
Well,
Yeah,
you
you're so
blew
sweet.
it now, though, Tim.
No, segue!
No, it's gone. Joe, Metal Gear Solid 5, Phantom Pain. Tell us all about this trip. What's going on here? You went and you played it for a hell of a long time.
Yeah. They had us over at Konami's studio, the LA studio, to play it for basically just a week straight, and then got to bring it home. Also to put in a little extra time,
Awesome.
Overtime.
little overtime before the review went up, and that was on Sunday.
So the most amazing thing I think with the launch of the reviews and all this is I hope I wasn't the only person that was worried about the game's length. After Ground Zeroes really underwhelmed, I was expecting like, man, what if it's just a couple of Ground Zeroes strung together?
Yeah. Well, so there are two interesting things I think about the Phantom Pain that are that feel like very direct responses to like previous Metal Gear criticisms, and one of them is the length. I think that they got burned so bad with the length of Ground Zeroes that maybe that's not as much of a response. Maybe Phantom Pain was always going to be huge, that huge, but like I guess if you at all had like any reservation about how short Ground Zeroes was and worry that would like transfer to the main game, it doesn't. Like I said, I played that game for a good like 45 hours there, and that was not even as thorough as possible. That was like doing I did a fair number of like side ops and stuff, but for the most part, it's like, well, I'm here. I'm gonna try and get through the story.
Right.
Okay. And takeaway is
it's really good.
yeah.
All right.
All right, guys, we did it.
The other thing that I wanna emphasize that feels like a response before I get too far away from it is the story stuff, or like the
This
way
is the part
that's
that
integrated.
worries me.
Yeah. So for me as a fan, it's probably the most disappointing thing overall about the Phantom Pain.
You cheered too soon, Hanson.
Can you take them back with anti-claps?
Well, no. First of all, it's still a great game. Like obviously 925. I really liked it. But for those of us who've sort of been playing Metal Gear for a long time, there are certain things that I don't want to say like come to expect out of the story or something.
Seems like you're saying that.
No, it's more about the fact that story has always been a big part of the appeal of these games. Like in addition to, it's always sort of felt like a two-pillar game. Like it's about the stealth and it's about this sort of like narrative that unfolds.
I feel like it's always gotten criticism, but tell me if I'm wrong here. I feel like at the same time people be like, gosh, 20 hours of cutscenes, you can skip them all and beat the game in 5 hours. Like, oh, all those cutscenes, Kojima, OU. But it was also kind of like a wink and a nudge. Like, I actually really enjoyed these, though. You know what I mean? I never.
Well, some people don't really enjoy them, but because for me, there's a bit of a wink because like I really like those scenes, but I also can see how they are a bit excessive in a game too. But I'm glad they're there because like I want to see that stuff happen. So the way they handle that is that a lot of the story stuff is just more opt-in. So it's not like you don't get the answers that you're looking for. Well, not all of them, but if you want answers or context to the stuff that's going on, you basically have to like go through the menu and like listen to audio tapes.
So it was basically what we were doing, when we went and played Ground Zeroes during our cover story trip for it last year. Like we went into the menus and started listening to all of the audio tapes, and we were surprised by how many details we were getting from it.
Yeah. Exactly. It also reminds me of, this was a complaint of mine in Final Fantasy 13 also, is like how a lot of the character motivations and like reasons for why things are happening is sort of offloaded into these like
data log?
Yeah, like data logs. And that's basically what this is, except they're not it's not transcripts, it's audio that
at least you can keep playing while listening to it.
Well, that's the question. There's such a huge world in theory. Can't you just hit play all and then just roam around on your horse listening to this stuff?
Yeah, you kind of can, except it's important enough that you kind of want to, for me anyway, like I wanted to pay attention to it. If there's some, and this isn't spoilery, but like if there's a tape about Skullface's motivation, like why he's doing what he's doing, it's not like you just kind of, oh, I wonder what he's doing, I'll just set that in the background while I like go around this base and shoot guys. Like you kind of need to pay attention to some of that stuff. And there are a lot of tapes like that. It's not all just like frill that you don't need. So
is it coherent without any of the tapes?
It's coherent but not satisfying, I guess.
Okay.
Is sort of my take on it.
It's so weird that they wouldn't surface some of that stuff more.
Yeah, but I think it comes down to the fact that like they got so much grief for those giant cutscenes in MGS4 that they were just sort of like, well, we're going to put in a handful of cutscenes that are sort of necessary. And beyond that, it's like, well, if you want to know what's happening, go listen to it. Because there are even times when it's like, someone's like, hey, boss, that guy that we have had some really important information for us. If you want to hear it, I put it on a cassette for you. It's like he's right there talking to you and can relay it.
Well, that's what's so weird, because even in Ground Zero, so many people complained about the lack of big boss. Shut up. The lack of the sons of big boys.
That was Hanson's number one complaint, at least.
The lack of big bosses VO. Shut up, I hate you so much. But like having not enough Kiefer dialogue as Snake. And in the preview events that they've held for MGS5, that's another big takeaway, is like, oh boy, Big Boss is barely talking.
He talks more in those tapes.
That's exactly it.
But throughout the course of like the main story, he is largely silent. Even in times when it's like he's conspicuously silent. Like there are times when someone is speaking to him and you expect him to say something.
Right.
And instead he just sort of stares and you're like,
line.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Like it feels a little bit like that.
Does Ocelot play off it at all? Is anyone ever like, oh, don't talk much, do you? Any lines like that help flesh it out?
Not that I remember.
Is the theory just that Kiefer is expensive and they only had so much time and they put all of his time into these cassettes?
I don't know. I think it really just boils down to like they wanted to let the players get immersed in the world as much as possible. Mm-hmm. They wanted to not interrupt that with a bunch of cutscenes and a bunch of codec dialogue. So pretty much most of the story is just sort of told in the tapes, or like you get sort of abbreviated versions of some of these conversations as you are going like to and from missions. So you get some basic context, but not the stuff that actually like makes it satisfying.
Are all these tapes available like right away, or how do you get access to this?
They're like the story gated.
Okay.
So it's like you finish a mission, which is actually kind of another, this makes it sound like I'm really down on the
We'll
game,
get to the gameplay stuff.
But part of the problem is that a lot of times you unlock the tape with information that would have been useful right after the event happens that it would have been useful for.
Oh, I see.
So it's like instead of going into event and then when it happens, you're like, oh, it happens. You're like, huh.
You get context,
and then you go read
afterwards.
the tape or listen to the tape, and then you're like, oh, okay, that makes more sense.
What a weird structure for this whole
I feel
thing.
like the whole story will really click when you play the game again and remember all the tapes or something.
Yeah.
So with go ahead.
The other main thing I wanted to touch on the story is, and I think part of this is sort of like an expectation setting things for fans, is that like in previous Metal Gear games, at least all of them that I've been like involved in covering, there's been you can always feel pretty safe like watching trailers or demos or stuff before the game comes out, because
Right.
it's like, oh well, that's just a fraction of what's going to happen. It's like in Metal Gear Solid 2, no one knew about Raiden until it came out.
Yeah.
Or
Because they switched-
until we reviewed it. Yeah.
Well, they put Snake on the big shell.
Yeah, and like in MGS3, there was like a ton of stuff that they didn't cover beforehand. MGS4, all of the stuff that they showed for the most part was like from chapter 1
Right.
For the most part,
of
yeah.
MGS4. I mean, some glimpses here and there, but for the most part, like I remember when I was reviewing MGS4, I finished the first chapter and then sort of went down a catalog in my head of like, okay, these are screens that I remember seeing and sequences I remember seeing, and then being like, geez, I think I've ticked all the boxes and I've been playing this game for like 3.5 hours,
I think they showed Rex in the snow from chapter 4 in one of the trailers, because I remember seeing it and thinking, God, I wish I didn't see that. I wish I didn't know that was coming up.
I don't remember seeing that
Okay.
one. I might have been going a little more like radio silence at
Sure,
that point.
but with this,
The thing that I wanted to say on this is that, like, to avoid disappointment, don't hold out hope that there is like some giant, pull the curtain back and there's this huge facet to the game that they haven't talked about yet.
It's pretty much all out there.
Yeah, there's no big like Shadow Moses style moment where it's like, oh my God, I can't believe we're going there. I can't believe this is happening. That is so like, what a great nod to fans, kind of, like there are great moments for fans in here, but they haven't really been holding back in terms of like showing what the areas are, what the content is, what the the buddies that you work with, that kind of thing.
As for the areas, though, it's like so far we know it's Middle East, we know it's Africa, and is that pretty much all they've gone into?
Yeah,
officially,
and that is basically what it is. I mean,
Oh, wow.
I could have
It's Afghanistan, Africa, and Mother Base are sort of your main.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I thought they had alluded during our cover story trip that there was a little bit more.
I could have sworn they said 5
But-
areas or regions.
Yeah, maybe there's regions within them that they
Well,
were
I mean,
referring to. I'm not sure.
The rumor is that this game is coming out now because Kojima could not get more time and money to invest more in it.
Does that make sense? Is this like a Destiny patch job at the last second? Does it feel that way?
I mean, it's really hard to say. There's so much content in the game. Like it doesn't feel lacking in that regard. It feel like for me it's not that the absence of these things is just like I don't know, like a nail in the coffin or something. It's just I guess for me it was just a little bit more like, oh, I guess that kind of like what you see is what you get. A little more than in previous installments.
So obviously the Metal Gear series, there's a ton to unpack, and that's what we've been doing the entire time, is like crazy expectations. This series is going on since the 80s.
Yeah.
But outside of that, like big context and the weight of the franchise, let's talk about the gameplay and like how much time you spent on it, and what you were doing, what you found yourself, like what the hooks were that you ended up finding very satisfying. And
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, the big change for it is the open world business.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people maybe have an expectation that this is going to be Assassin's Creed or something, where it's just this big world that you're running around and doing collectibles and missions and stuff all over the place. It's actually a little more focused on like pockets of action.
Okay.
Like you can wander around the open world, but it's not like a lot of open world games where like every 20 feet there's a new thing to do, or like I don't feel like I did when I was playing Dragon Age Inquisition.
Okay.
Where it was like there's just a side quest here and a side quest there and I can't focus my efforts at all. It's a lot more just based on like Afghanistan is one big zone, but a mission might just happen in a little like corner of that zone. It's still a large mission area. So you go in, you do that mission in that mission area, and then maybe you extract to mother base.
Okay.
You know, so it's a lot more sort of like in and out in my experience anyway. It was a lot more like in and out to different areas of the map rather than sort of organically moving from one area of the map to the next within the universe. Plus, there's the benefit to that in that, like, you know, your suppressor is only going to last so long. You only have so many grenades. You only have so many bullets. Like, you don't want to just stay in the world indefinitely because you're gonna it's gonna get a little harder for you.
Right.
You can. It's not totally true. You can order resource drops and stuff. So if your suppressor runs out, you can like give your helicopter a call and it'll drop off like more ammo and more suppressors. So you can stay in there if you want to, but it also pays to go back to your base and stuff.
Because you're actually upgrading that the entire time, right?
Right. So, and then that brings us to the other, for me, which is like the big star of the game, is Mother Base. This is the thing that like really, for me, was like propelling me forward in it. And that's, it's an expansion of what we saw in Peace Walker. So you get to build up this base. You have different teams, like an intel team, a combat team, an R&D team.
Right.
So all of the soldiers that you Fulton off of the field, Fulton being the balloons that you attach to soldiers that
amazing.
then takes them up in the air and they go back to your base. And then even though they were your enemies, suddenly they're your friends.
Yeah.
Because that balloon ride was really fun.
yeah,
and they appreciated it.
Intense, high pressure, I don't know, convincing sessions going on there.
That's part of what's funny too, is that like sometimes you get a guy and gets sent right to the brig because he's like overly hostile or something.
Yeah.
And then like after a few missions, it's like, oh, he was persuaded to join.
Hey.
They don't put persuaded in quotes, but
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know, how'd you get him to join?
Weird lobotomy scars all over.
Yeah. So anyway, pretty much all of the stuff that you're doing in these missions feeds into your progression at the base. So you pick up soldiers, they become soldiers you can assign to your teams. The more people you have on your teams, the better the equipment you can research. But you need money and resources to research that equipment. So you need to do more side missions. You need to like Fulton stuff off of the field. So it ends up being this like pretty addictive loop that you're doing parallel to your story progression. So you're not always just worried about like, I need to extract the prisoner. It's like, I need to extract the prisoner, but I need to get over there and Fulton that tank, and I need to get those resources. And that soldier has pretty good stats, so I'm going to go grab him too. You know, so it's a lot. It's a lot. You have your main objective, but then Mother Base gives you all of these other objectives that you're compelled to complete.
It's a kidnapping and stealing simulator, basically. It's incredible. Kleptomania.
Yeah, there's a lot of it. There's a lot
Tactical
of it.
stealing operations. Does it a lot of time in the menu then, kind of navigating where you're signing people to, like Peace Walker?
So that's another, like, I wished Peace Walker had this, and I'm so glad this does. There's an auto-assign button.
Ooh.
So basically, if you have, the way that worked in Peace Walker is you had to individually assign. So it's like you have 15 people in your waiting room, and you need to be like, okay. Well, no, actually, there was an auto-assign thing in Peace Walker also, but it didn't work very well, if I remember, if all the teams were full.
Okay.
Anyway, point being, there's a way that you can just take all of your staff across all of your teams and just press a button that's basically like optimize.
Yeah, that's great.
Put these people where they're best.
Okay.
But you can also manually dink around with it. And you'd want to do that. Let's say it's like, oh man, my next Fulton balloon upgrade, I can do that when my research team is level 28. Right now they're level 26. So maybe you go over to your combat unit and look for people with a decent R&D score.
Okay.
And maybe you just manually throw them over there for a little bit so you can up your level to the point that you can research that next thing you want.
Then just click auto assign, get them all back on their respective teams when you're done.
Exactly.
That sounds great. Like, honestly, that was, having played Peace Walker last year, I really enjoyed the micromanagement of Mother Base and the fact that you get to see it like realized in 3D.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well,
Now-
this is the confusing part for me, Joe.
Okay.
Is I feel like in the ramp up here, they've been talking about how your base can be invaded. And I always imagined that was Mother Base. But then from the reviews, I learned there's forward operating bases.
Right.
And that's a whole nother thing. How do those interconnect?
So we got a chance to play some of the forward operating base just to like get an idea for it. But this was not a thing that we were able to spend, like a whole day playing to get like a full sense of the way the progression works. But the basic premise of it is that it's like a secondary Mother Base. It's unlocked fairly late in the game. this is sort of ballpark, but I feel like I got there maybe around the 30-hour mark or
wow.
so,
Okay.
maybe 25-ish. So it's unlocked fairly late, but it lets you establish a secondary mother base that still augments sort of your resources, your production. Because mother base has a cap. Like, you can only have this many people on a team. You can only have this many struts on your R&D platform. You can only have this many struts on your Intel platform. So this lets you effectively like up the amount you can invest in your base by establishing another base. But in order to use it, you need to be online. You basically need to put your assets in your FOB at risk.
Okay.
So it's classic Dark Souls, Clash of Clans type situation.
Right. So the assets that you have in your offline base, the assets you have on mother base are fine.
Okay.
But anything you invest in your FOB is at risk, because whether you're offline or not, players can go and I'm pretty sure it's whether you're offline or not. Players can go and attack you.
It's SOBs.
And then they go, and I'm assuming that they're
SOBs in your
playing
FOB.
in the traditional like third person
Right.
view
So
as a snake or something.
right. So when they attack or when you defend, it's basically like a one-on-one kind of cat and mouse game where as a defender, you are trying to stop the other player from like infiltrating your base and getting to a particular point. But just like in the normal game, it's not just as simple for an attacker of just like getting from point A to point B. You want to try and steal things while you're there, because anything you steal helps you.
So if a big Santa bag running
But
around
you
this
only
thing?
get to keep it if you get to the extraction point or whatever.
I believe that you get to keep what you extract no matter what. So basically, the sooner that you can like get some resources, get some staff members out, the better. And then, so that means that the other player has more incentive to come in and try and like stop the bleeding.
This sounds fun, but I worry about constantly getting those alerts. If I'm trying to just enjoy the fragments of story that are in Phantom Pain, is it going to be popping up on the screen like, you're under attack, jump over there now?
That's something that I guess we won't know until the game is out.
Yeah.
Because like until it's in everyone's hands, it's hard to say how popular it's going to be, how much people are going to engage with it. For me, like I had fun playing the sections of the FOB that I played, but it does add like a level of risk and just a level of like interaction that I'm not looking for in Metal Gear. Like Metal Gear for me is like a solo infiltration mission.
Right. That's right.
So like I am fine with just like turning that element of it off and just sticking with the mother base I've got. But
So you don't feel too handicapped just with having the one base?
oh no.
Okay,
no.
great.
I mean, I have yet to get to the point where I feel like my growth is capped and I'm not where I want to be.
Okay.
Maybe, I doubt this, but like I guess it's possible that there might be some high-end items or something that are realistically like not practical to attain unless you have sort of that extra income for it or whatever. But anyway, I haven't hit the wall.
Speaking of hitting walls, does it kick you back into the world after you beat the game and you're able to just kind of keep exploring and building up your bases?
Yeah, so you are able to keep playing. You can replay any of the main story missions that you want also. So that actually ends up being really handy because like each mission has sort of your like mission critical thing that you do, but also has some like optional checkboxes, not just the mother base stuff I was talking about before, but things like, not only, defeat the patrol, but also extract the patrol.
Okay.
That you just get, it's like a little thing you can do as you're going through. And some of those are only possible upon like playing the mission a second time or playing the mission with more advanced equipment that you don't have when you first go through it.
Okay.
So
Boss fights? How are they? Do they exist?
it's a little interesting. They're different. Like they're different in the sense that the previous Metal Gear games have all sort of stuck to a very similar, well, I guess Peace Walker didn't. Well, even that did a little bit with your boss fights being those helicopters and stuff. The series tends to stick to the formula of like, you get in there, and then the story introduces a group of like 4 or 5 bad guys, and then you systematically take them down one after the other until you get to the final boss fight.
It's basically Running Man.
Yeah,
Or something
exactly,
like that.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
It's almost literally running.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure Kojima's a huge fan.
but this is not structured like that.
Okay. They go away with that Beauty and the Beast and Foxhound type thing.
This is one of those areas that I think, like I mentioned before, it's not off limits for me to talk about, but I'd just rather, all I want to say about it is that it's a bit different. Don't expect what you had with the Beauty and the Beast unit and stuff.
Okay.
But the boss fights are still, like, there are still boss fights there that you can do.
That's interesting, because like one of my favorite things about all the boss fights in the previous games was a lot of them just kind of like a puzzle in a way. There's always something to figure out. So hopefully there's some element of that hidden in there somewhere still.
Yeah. I can say, I'll say about that it's they're more straightforward.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah.
Something that really had me worried from your review, Joe, is you say there's still a lot of unanswered questions in the Metal Gear universe, and so
this is going to be another area that's going to be tough to talk about.
Right.
But there are, like, I still feel like this game is worthy of, like, the Metal Gear name. There's still some there's still, like, in terms of the story, like, there's still some cool developments for people who are interested in the larger series lore. There's
some twists and weird stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you are expecting something that puts like Metal Gear Solid 4 did, that just sort of takes everything together and ties a bow on it, and it's like, you're wondering what this character was doing? That's what they're doing.
Right.
Hey, those people are related. Hey, look at that.
She married that poopy guy.
Yeah. Which, whether you like it or not, at least that was a game of conclusions.
Right.
And I think because the future of the series is currently kind of in doubt with Kojima and Konami, a lot of people were kind of hoping that this would be not a rehash, but that would sort of resurrect that feeling of like the final chapter that closes the loop between the Big Boss saga and the Solid Snake saga.
Right.
And like the series could end with this, and you would still be like, cool. I'm fine with that. But it does not. It is not as exhaustive in its treatment of certain of the different areas.
Okay, so is the difference between like there is technically a gap where they can still cram more games versus cliffhangers? Like I think that's the division that I'm still trying to figure out what you're getting at.
Yeah.
It's getting into territory.
Yeah,
I think mean, even letting people know if there's a cliffhanger is in a way a bit spoilery.
Yeah, I can't. I'm gonna go hands off on that one.
Listen, man, you got to leave some mysteries to the story of Big Boys.
Joe, how would you?
Two big boys.
Yeah, how many big boys did you get on your mother base? No.
Oh, my big boys! Come on down to mother base. It's so big now.
This is falling apart. Joe, how would you say this game stacks up compared to other Metal Gear games, solely as a Metal Gear game?
Yeah. Boy, that's tough.
That's why I asked it, to see you squirm.
Because for me, like, unlike for a lot of series, I don't really like maintain a like, this is my favorite and my second favorite and my third. Like my favorite, I know my favorite. It's 3, Snake Eater. I did not like this as much as 3 in terms of, what I consider to be a Metal Gear game.
Okay.
However, you should also note that, like, I think the gameplay loop in this is a lot more fun than Snake
as a
Eater.
game.
Yeah, like as a game to play. Like I mean, you remember Snake Eater, all the like weird controls you had to do to like lay down and
the
like,
finger gymnastics.
Yeah, exactly. And
was
like there's
insane.
Like this is just, not only is this easier to play, but it's just like you get a much greater sense of investment in what you're doing because of the base, and like there's a greater sense of, like in MGS3 for that, like for any particular like boss fight or sequence or whatever, they know the equipment that they have put at your disposal at that point. You know, they're like, well, you got a sniper rifle back there, so we're going to give you a sniper fight right now. And part of what's interesting about Phantom Pain is that they're really hands off in terms of like what you get when you get it, because it's so much more player driven in terms of progression, that instead of there feeling like there is like a right way to do a particular mission or sequence, it feels like there are a ton of different ways, and just like based on the equipment you happen to have like A, the equipment you have developed, and B, the equipment that you actually brought with you for a particular mission. It's a lot more of just like, well, these are the tools I got. Let's see how I make it work.
Also, I guess, in the absence of like really big story beats that are the reward, essentially, the fact that the gameplay loop is satisfying in itself, that's super critical, because the story in previous Metal Gear games was the reward. That cutscene is like, all right, you did good at that boss fight. Here's a bunch of story.
Can you tell us some crazy gameplay moments that happened, Joe? Like the wackiest, silliest thing you did with all the different tools you have?
Oh, man. Let's see.
Did you actually use those inflatable snakes at all that they showed in the Africa demo?
Those can be handy. I don't like them a whole lot.
The way they look at you?
I don't like decoys in games in general.
Not even octopus?
Right.
So I use them. I shouldn't really talk about the one time that I found those useful, but
boss fight, everybody.
I like it.
but I guess like to illustrate sort of, this may be not as zany as you're looking for,
and I'm looking for pretty zany.
I mean, you have a rocket propelled bionic arm.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's crazy. Your buddy D-Walker that they've talked about, which is it's like a little mini mech that you sort of like hop in and ride around.
Yeah,
is hilarious.
Wait, he voiced?
Kind of. Like it's like he's not a character. He has responses, and so I'm hilarious not in the sense that like his writing is necessarily funny or anything. Hilarious just in the application for it, because like basically he's just this robot that you get on, and then you just sort of like go zipping around on him like he's an on-land jet ski or something, So you're just like, and he controls sort of haphazardly, so you do a lot of sort of like sliding around, but you like walk up to a couple guards who are on patrol, and then his like big robo arm just like picks one up and slams it down, and picks one up and slams the other one down, and then he's got like little like trank guns that come up, and you can like dual trank guns that he can just sort of like
awesome.
So I had a lot of fun playing.
It's like that scene in Paul Blart 2 where he gets this souped up
Who saw that?
Segway.
No one
Tim and I have seen it several times
on an airplane recently, just surrounded by silent screens playing Paul Blart 2. I've seen the entire movie in chunks. It's kind of like the Metal Gear story.
Okay. It's really so he goes to Vegas for this convention about security guards. But sat next to the sweetest,
Kill us. Wade, kill
sweetest
us.
little girl on the flight, and she seemed so smart. And then she booted up Paul Blart Mall Cop. Could not stop
Everybody
laughing.
was losing it.
It was like, I've never seen somebody laugh so hard at this fight scene in Paul Blart 2 as this little girl just like basically ready to throw the... Never mind.
Anyway, so what I wanted to follow up with, more about Metal Gear than Paul Blart, was the buddy system. Like how did that, besides D-Walker, there's the dog, there's
Paul Walker,
there's Quiet,
and the horse, D-Horse. Yeah.
It's called D-Horse?
Yeah. I think it stands for Diamond.
the
Diamond Dog, Diamond Horse, Diamond Walker.
The divorce rates are getting pretty high right now in this country. Almost 50%, I think.
Okay.
Sorry.
So those
diamonds aren't forever.
One of the things that I know some fans were concerned about with the buddy system is that like that it might take away from that sort of solo sense of like, okay, now all of a sudden it's a co-op game or something like that. And really, even though the buddies are other characters or things that sort of help you out, it feels more like they are abilities that you bring along with you, and not like the dog, for instance, has a really, really effective sort of like radius like intel ping or like a radar ping. So when you go like basically when you walk into near a camp without necessarily like pulling up your binoculars and marking where all the guard positions are, the dog just knows where they are, so they get sort of marked on your
that's
map
nice.
for you.
That sounds like it's just taking some of the tedium out of it.
Yeah.
Can you look through its little dog eye patch?
No.
Damn it.
No.
Okay. And then Quiet. That's her name.
Yeah.
How was she?
Quiet's also a very effective buddy.
Okay.
She has some of this. She can scout, so she has some of the intel ability that D-Dog does. But D-Dog can like see through walls and stuff.
D-Dog. Hey, D-Dog.
D-Dog.
There he is.
See, I've been playing this game so much it doesn't even like it doesn't even faze me anymore.
You got to be in the Metal Gear universe.
Yeah. But Quiet can only mark people she can see, but she can also help you out with like fire support.
Okay.
So, for instance, if someone like spots you and you go into like reflex mode, she'll snipe them before they're able to like raise the alarm and shoot at you.
How many opportunities do you get with that? Like, how many times will she cover you?
I think as many as you need. I mean, like reflex mode just sort of kicks in every time that you're unseen and on the verge of being seen.
So is she just basically like helping you, give you a little bit of wiggle room? If you totally blow it, you'll still get caught, but she just helps you in those.
Yeah, and even though her rifle might make some noise, it draws people to the sniper and not to you.
That's good, because there's been situations where the reflex would kick in, like even in Ground Zeroes or something, and you just didn't have line of sight.
Yeah,
Right.
So
yeah. So that would help. And then there's also you can give her, for players like me who prefer to go non-lethal, you can give her trank.
Ooh,
sniper
I love that.
too.
Remember that whole thing where Kojima said people are going to feel really bad for criticizing Quiet once this game comes out?
Yeah, I don't feel so bad about it, but there is actually a story reason why she dresses the way she does.
Is it stupid?
I was not particularly sold on it.
But did you look at the camera and say, "I want people to cosplay me"?
Yeah, I mean it's
Okay.
I have a different question.
Uh-huh.
Is there a limit on Fultons, or can you just Fulton everything under the sun?
the limit on Fultons is that it costs money to Fulton.
Oh, it does. Okay.
So it costs it's a negligible amount to bring out soldiers. It's like 300 GMP to take a soldier out. A tank might cost 10,000 GMP or something. So based on, it's just sort of depending on how swimming in money you are.
Got it.
You may or may not want to just grab everything you see.
And it will attract enemies if you do it too close, I think.
Yeah, it can. Yeah. That's one of the little funny bits of humor for me in the game is to Fulton the guy out when one of his buddies is nearby, because then you just hear "Whoa, hold on, I'll help you." Yeah. And then he goes, and then the guy's like, "HQ, we had a friendly just taken away by a balloon."
That's perfect.
Yeah.
You're fired.
Yeah.
Jeff, I wonder if you could read this piece of paper that I'm handing you right now.
Oh, great.
Sure.
It's a
Joe stinks. No, it says David Hayter will be a voice actor voicing Snake in Metal Gear Solid 5.
Wait.
And there are two
Footnotes?
clarifications.
yes.
The first one is any Snake, and the second one is outside of already existing flashback scenes.
So this is the bet Joe Juba and I made
This was
over a year ago. Oh, well, maybe longer than that, actually.
No, I think it was probably when did you guys do that cover story? Late 2013?
It doesn't say, which I'm a
thought it
little
was last
disappointed.
March.
We
were
should
there.
date these.
Yeah, we were there January
Or March of
in
last
2014 is when we were
January.
actually visiting the studio. So I assume it was roughly around that time.
Okay.
But anyways, Joe Juba, you bet me $10.
Wait, that can't be right. Ground Zeroes didn't come out in 2014, did it?
Yeah, totally did.
Did.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a weird time we live in.
All right.
Time flies.
But
Joe.
anyway, you guys
It's
bet.
even signed by both
It's
of them.
not, is that
very
is that
official.
your signature there, Joe Juba?
Yep, it certainly is.
It's got
penalty
the
for-
penalty?
for being incorrect is $10 US. So by handing me this $10 bill, which you
Now-
can see on the YouTube version of this podcast,
Here's what I have to say.
yes.
I retain the right
Ooh.
to reclaim this $10
Okay.
if there is some Easter egg or something that requires more time than I put into the game
Okay.
that might render that
That sounds fair.
statement
Or
correct.
maybe there'll be Hater DLC coming at some point.
Yeah. Oh, if there's Hater DLC, I also get this back.
Haters gonna hate the
All right.
DLC.
Joe Juba, I will
But-
accept your dirty money.
Yeah, in the content that I have seen so far in the game, I was not right.
No David Hater.
That's
in
a
the game.
sad day.
It's a sad day indeed.
Not for you. I mean, you're $10 richer, Ben, but
Oh my God, it's going to be so sweet.
can
I'm
you
not even going to
close
use
your
it.
wallet with
Sad
that?
for me. I don't even know how I'm going to eat tonight.
That's about it. So thumbs up on Metal Gear Solid 5 after all this time.
Yeah.
Man, I can't wait.
I played a ton of it. I am still playing it, so I'm looking forward to putting more time into it still.
So you got to keep all your progress from that trip?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I
that's
did.
the best. Okay.
Oh, cool. So I went back because I remember trying to find the original news story about Metal Gear Solid 5 that Kojima was even hinting about the project. And it was from him tweeting in April of 2010. And so I want to read his original vision for this game. You tell me how much it holds up.
Okay.
He says, "The next project will challenge a certain type of taboo. If I mess up, I'll probably have to leave the industry. However, I don't want to pass by avoiding that. I turned 47 this year. It's been 24 years since I started making games. Today, I got an ally who would happily support me in that risk, although it's just one person. For a start, it's good. And then he says that he's everything in his head about this game. The game design, story, characters, configuration, the mechs, the setting, casting, the way it'll look, sound, beginning and end, the important dramatic sequences.
It's so cryptic.
It is. But does that taboo angle hold up from like the earliest reports of this game?
I don't know what taboo he's talking about.
Okay. Fantastic.
Could the pause stuff
Could
have
be,
been?
man. Is that your
'Cause
best guess?
That was the biggest to me. I mean, I don't know.
Oh yeah, because it could be Ground Zeroes.
it could be. Very well, yeah.
Yeah. Then
Did anything approach that? I don't know if you can talk about that, but like,
well, I mean, some of the. I mean, I think Ground Zeroes is probably the more likely.
yeah.
Okay.
The more likely focus of that.
Well, maybe he did mess up and now he has to leave the industry like he said in
be.
2010.
Oh.
It's sad.
It was on Twitter. It's official.
It's crazy. He said he had one supporter. Just one person's going to support him on this task. It was like, who in there? Maybe Ken, his producer, who he's tight with.
Can only speculate.
It's so bizarre. But on that note, did you get any hint being out at Konami about what the hell's going on with the Kojima situation?
Oh no, they very explicitly said they are not talking about that at all. Like they made it. There was effectively like an announcement that's like, just so you know, we know that there are questions out there about this.
Right.
We're not going to answer them.
It was nice at least he edited the launch trailer. He's been tweeting a lot about that. That's cool. And then even like Konami's official account said like, be sure to check out the launch trailer edited and directed by Hideo Kojima. And
Yeah, there's some weird things about that though. Like I don't think the launch trailer is like full of spoilers, but there are things in there that just sort of like, you know, like what some of the mechs look like and stuff that I'm kind of like, geez, I wouldn't really want to know that.
I think
Yeah.
I'm dodging it.
Don't do it. I watched it because like I want to see like the last Metal Gear trailer directed by Kojima, but then it got to a point where I was like, I wish I wouldn't have seen
You watch
that.
it
yeah,
later.
Exactly.
Yeah, you definitely should not forget to pick it up.
Like I'm glad that I saw it after I played the game and not before I played the game.
Fantastic. All right. Well, that about wraps up the first segment of games we've been playing.
Yeah, go right on to some emails after this.
Yeah, we're going to have an extended reader section, reader email section. So stay tuned for that.
Very cool.
Welcome back to the Game Informer Show. So for this next part, we're going to do a extended answering session for a bunch of emails that
Just
we got.
sit down by the campfire with our good old listeners.
Tuck it in with a little bit hot cocoa, and just
You mean tuck in?
wait. What's the expression?
Yeah, I don't think it's tuck it in.
Tuck it in around a campfire.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they send emails to podcast@GameInformer?
Yeah, send your emails to podcast@GameInformer.com. We choose
pictures.
the best. We choose the best one for email of the week, and we send something out as a little thank you. So stay tuned. You got to listen to see listen to see if you
Already
choose
off the
yours.
rails.
Okay. All right, let's get into this. All right, this is Joel from Central Coast, Australia. Hey guys. So last night I sat down to play a game on my laptop and was surprised to see that I'd gone home, installed, and waiting on my games list. I have no recollection of buying it or downloading it. I remembered a few episodes ago that you interviewed the creators. Forgive me, I can't remember their names. It's Fulbright and Steve Gaynor. And they suggested a way to play the game for someone who hadn't before.
Yeah.
Being with no voice diaries and all doors unlocked. I decided to go for it. Why not? So Joel here had no prior knowledge or ideas about the game. He kept waiting for a jump scare and immediately quit the game. I fully explored the house, getting what I hoped was all the clues, and then had to go to sleep. Basically, he's not stopped thinking about it. That's to paraphrase the rest of that.
So it is the way to go.
And the question is, sorry about the wall of info, but my question is, has there been any games that you couldn't figure out or stop thinking about and had to cheat and look up everything? Today's going to be a long day, hopefully staying strong from looking at explanations, Joel.
Oh, and so he doesn't know that he's reached the end.
He just wants to piece it all together himself, it looks like.
He says like,
Wait, so no audio diary?
No.
How does that
So it's like, I think it's the truest to it being like you going and stumbling upon this house yourself.
right.
Oh,
It's what
man.
Gaynor recommended just as a weird experiment for people who've never played it before.
Huh.
Yeah, it's an interesting strategy. He talks about like how he's racking his brain about it.
Because you're
I have a-
really not going to see a lot of what makes that game cool that way, I feel like. Like a lot of the way the story is delivered through those diaries and stuff is, well, okay.
Because you still read the diaries, don't you? Like, can you still read them? Just
I would imagine so. But he talks about like scouring the internet for information. It's like he could just spend 2 hours and play the game the way it's supposed to happen.
That would probably be the good follow-up. Give it a good honest try.
Right.
This reminds me of Her Story.
For sure.
And I gave that game an honest try and played it the way you're supposed to by typing in keywords and hoping that you were specific enough that it gave you relevant movies and stuff like that. But I walked away from it with my own ideas. I played it alongside my girlfriend, and we both kind of had different opinions. And then we just decided to cheat, I guess you'd call it. Ben Hanson called me a dirty cheater about this. I watched all the interviews in sequence.
Just on YouTube. Just YouTube Her Story.
Yeah. It was a really good follow-up.
That would be a much better way to do it. Like I spent a bunch of time in that game like entering in the keywords to unlock all of the videos. But then I was looking for an easy way to sequence them, and it doesn't give it to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if you beat the game or beat it, quote unquote, you can unlock the ability to return 15 search queries or whatever.
Right.
And then what's the other thing? It's like
you get a random.
You get a random.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. They give you the keyword for random. So I just did random for a while. Started stumbling across some that had already been watched before, and so it wasn't as effective. And then it's kind of like, all right, I think I'm done with this game. I really enjoyed it. But
once you're at the level where you're watching random clips, you might as well just watch it all.
Yeah.
So, I guess so. Yeah. So, Jeffem, game that's devoured your mind?
Was that what the question was?
Yeah, it's basically a game that you couldn't stop thinking about, and maybe the point is to try to decipher the mystery, and you just had to, you wanted to look it up and figure out what it was all about.
Oh, no. I was thinking more like adventure games of just beating your head against the wall until you finally give up.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much every adventure game.
Correct. That's the way to do it. That's how you have fun.
Oh, go ahead.
For me, to answer the question more directly, is for me, the most recent one, it's not story-based, but was Axiom Verge.
Okay.
When that came out, Brian, when he reviewed it, got some weapon that I could not find.
Oh, really?
So I was sort of just obsessive about okay, I need to find the wall, and I was looking up online guides and stuff about okay, where can all the secret areas potentially be? How do I find the secret areas? What kind of weapons can I get there? And I was
you very thorough.
I was obsessive about that game for a good 2 weeks.
Was it a good weapon?
It's not even. I mean, yes, it's a great weapon, but at that point, I'd beaten the game so thoroughly that it's I didn't need it. But
I think another example of this was Bloodborne. I got pretty into Bloodborne's story and just trying to watch these 2-hour videos of people unpacking all that stuff. And there's a lot.
There's a good episode of this podcast with Miller and Dan Tack talking all about that stuff.
There you go.
I was riveted, and I hadn't even finished the game.
That's great.
Yeah.
So thanks, Joel. The next one is from Jessica from Georgia. Hello, podcast crew. Love the new show. You guys are doing a great job. Playing The Witcher 3 has made me ponder this. If I could live and work in any video game universe, which would it be? For example, I love the Witcher profession, traveling around the world, learning about monsters, and figuring out ways to neutralize dangerous creatures. Which video game universe appeals to you guys, or what would you spend your life doing? Thank you for all the work you put in the podcast, Jessica.
Oh, thanks, Jessica. Man, tough question.
For me, this is so dumb. I was thinking about this earlier this year when I was playing Story of Seasons / Harvest Moon.
Okay.
I would love, I love just this sort of rural, small town feeling. I'd just love to be a shopkeeper in Harvest Moon, where it's you're in a town of 20 people, and you just sort of
and you got what they need.
Only one person's really doing anything.
Yeah.
Busting their ass.
But I mean, it's just a nice sort of relaxed pace life. Everything seems to be taken care of. You never in Harvest Moon, no one's ever God, how am I going to make rent this month?
Right,
Everyone's got their house. Everyone's
the worst thing that'll happen is you have
the
to
food they're growing. I don't know.
You'll have to marry off your daughter with pink hair at a certain point.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That comes
quaint.
I went with a very similar answer. I said shopkeeper in Legend of Zelda. Because it's mostly a nice, place.
It's a cave.
At least, but the problem in Legend of Zelda is
well, no, there are other actual shops that people have.
Sure.
I wasn't thinking of the old wizard.
Unless Link is currently ascendant or whatever.
Yeah, then you're doomed.
Who's gonna And also, God, if you're just some dude who's sitting there like selling bombs and arrows, you're going to attract the wrong crowd.
It's
unless
true.
the
Come down
hero
here for some
highlights-
Whatever.
Yeah.
They may blow up part of my shop.
Your choice is terrible.
Yeah. I also went shopkeeper on the Citadel.
That's how original we all are.
Jeez, we all were just born for customer service.
I could never get sick of that song in the Citadel. I would just want to hear it loop because I imagine that's coming through the PA system on the Citadel. It was built in as the way the Prometheans, the Reaper's designer of the hell was going on up there.
Yeah.
No one went for Beetle's Flying Shop from Skyward Sword.
Yeah, it's pretty much what Jeff chose.
It's
Yeah,
close, except it's the flying
that's exactly what I said.
shop. I just want to be I want to be Simon Belmont. I just want to go kill all the monsters. Like it's similar
That
to the
ain't
Witcher
no
one.
job, Tim.
It's a hard job. Have you played those games?
Who
Boy.
pays you?
The community.
If you're not
pitches
getting
in.
paid, Tim, it's not a job.
Yeah,
That's just a hobby.
it's you get
Whipping
paid.
is a hobby.
Anyway, that was a fun one, Jessica. Thank you. The next one here is from Cameron from Tallahassee, Florida. Hey guys, lately during my commute to work and during my morning showers, I have been thinking a lot over defining moments in my life. Showers.
Okay.
Those are a good place for those things. With games being a huge part of my life, I obviously focused on them and began to look more analytically at what I played and when. Throughout my life, the Zelda series has always been close to me. I think each game marked a sort of era for me. Wind Waker, while I was young, allowing me to explore in a bright, friendly, it says Windwater, setting while setting seeds for serious times. Twilight Princess marking a departure from that childishness and gaining responsibility.
Did he curve his life towards the releases?
Majora's Mask during a time when I felt lonely and wasn't sure what to do, and Skyward Sword had me begin to think more about relationships and roles. So my question, what games have really defined an era of your life and had an impact on you, on your personality? Keep up the good work, Cameron.
I want to just point out, first of all, he said when he was young, he played Wind Waker.
Yeah,
How old
that
does
was
that
a
make all
huge
of us?
flag for me also. Yeah.
Yeah. Too young to listen to this godforsaken podcast. That's for damn sure.
Anyway, I kind of generalize that into like, if you guys have any games that like, you think about like a kind of a pivotal point in your life or a really memorable point in your life, and this game is just completely attached to it and you cannot separate the two.
I mean, it's tempting to go super young for that, but probably college.
Okay.
I feel like we talked about this last week, but like I had a really tough time freshman year at college. And I remember diving back into Pokemon Red, like the remake of that came out for GBA. It's like, I'm just going to sit back, play Harvest Moon on Super Nintendo, and just isolate myself in a very unhealthy way. But then also got really into Smash Melee, which I already really loved. But like, then that was like a blossoming socially of like, okay, I can just play Melee with people in my
Right.
dorms. This is going to be a piece of cake now. And it's so much easier and so much better than just playing Harvest Moon for Super Nintendo over and over again.
Yeah, it turns out.
I am that shopkeeper.
Yeah. For me, so when my wife and I first started dating, we lived in different cities. She was in Sioux Falls and I was in Minneapolis, so there was a long drive. But when we the very first time that I was kind of like making the drive down there, we'd been on some dates, but this was the first like trip that I was making to see her.
Wait, where'd you go on dates before that?
She had been up in the cities.
Okay.
So, but this was my first trip, like, to see her. I was also, like, simultaneously, well, not. I was in the middle of playing Assassin's Creed Brotherhood,
Okay.
and this just goes to the point. It is just inextricable in my mind because I remember as I was, like, getting closer and closer to Sioux Falls, where she lived, and just sort of thinking, like, oh, God, is this some huge mistake? I just drove 4 hours. I could be at home right now, capturing different areas of the map. Like it was that sort of like that in that moment of doubt. It was like I just want to go to a nice, comfortable place where I am like sitting on my couch by myself, playing video games. I don't have to interact with anyone or put any of myself on the line. You know?
Yeah.
So like in that moment, I was so into Brotherhood, and I was just thinking, like, oh man, I wish I was playing Brotherhood right now. Of course, it turned out okay, but
Joe is flashing his
But now
blingy
every
ring.
time you play Brotherhood, you question your marriage.
exactly,
right.
yeah.
When are we going to start thinking about AC fatherhood, by the way?
I was trying to find that joke, and you found it.
There we go.
There you go.
Jeff?
Mine was GoldenEye in like early high school. That was the game that my friends and I played every day after school And Perfect Dark, actually, Perfect Dark came out a couple of years too late, where it's like, this is objectively better in every way, but it's still not like the same group of friends.
Because at that point, were you in
time.
college or?
Yeah, it was like right at the end of
Okay.
probably the end of high school and
Yeah,
beginning of college, and it's
Sure.
just was never the same. But every time, I think that's probably why a lot of people like GoldenEye as much as they do. Just they probably had a similar experience with
No one is that nostalgic over GoldenEye just playing it by themselves. Like, boy, those bots were sure fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mine is similar to Joe's in a way where it's about a girl a little bit. With like it was an old crush like from years and years and years ago, and I remember she had like a pink DS Lite and I had a DS Lite, and whenever I boot up like New Super Mario Bros, I think about being just insanely anxious and sweaty palms playing like New Super Mario Bros, like the co-op modes with her and the competitive stuff. Like it was just like early infatuations, and
Because you were so head over heels for this lady?
yeah.
Not because Luigi was about to grab that coin before you were?
Oh, Mario. Yeah, no, it was just like, it was just that was a summer where I didn't play a ton of games. I was more just kind of trying to court her as hard as possible, and didn't work out. But we played a ton of that game, and so
I can't wait for the replay of New Super Mario Brothers where we have a special guest just bring that lady, break your heart.
You should.
I never loved you.
What?
That's what she sounded like.
That's-
Apparently, she
yeah,
was
that's
an
spot on.
80-year-old witch.
Anyway,
Can't wait to court this witch.
I need to stop revealing all my secrets.
She had
to
a
you.
pink DS and a cauldron.
She bought it at the Game Cauldron, a former store in Roseville, Minnesota. It was actually a game store called Game Cauldron.
Really? Yeah. That's a good name, I guess.
It's not bad. Yeah, I don't know.
These nerds like this crap, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. This next one is from Dominique from, I don't know how to pronounce this, Lisle, Illinois?
Illinois.
Lisle. Lisle? Lisle? Illinois.
Lizzle.
I don't know.
From
and
Illinois.
And from the Overblood Facebook group. Hello, Ben, Tim, and other GI staff. I've always been curious to know, what kind of books are you all reading?
Oh, boy.
If you all could share what, if anything, you're reading, and maybe a little bit about it and or why you chose it, that'd be cool. Dominic is reading Vampire Plagues, London, 1850, as an example there.
Tim, how many times have you read that crap?
Vampire Plague?
Yeah.
Man, my vampire literature pretty much begins and ends at Dracula.
Yeah.
Also, way to be very tolerant of what our listeners are enjoying.
No, I'm just trying to make fun of Tim. I'm very
How many
proud of him.
Ben Franklin biographies are you reading?
Hey, look, that one was very good.
Loser.
Yeah.
Oh,
Reading
man.
a biography.
I love
How dare you?
biographies. I
Fiction.
It's sad. Tim would probably make fun of me for this too, but I just finished rereading Jurassic Park.
Oh, I reread that not long ago. It was
Yeah, I remember actually when I started, I remember I was rereading Lost World, and I think it kind of kicked you in it because I know we were reading Lost World like roughly the same time again.
God, I forgot about that.
Yeah, but Jurassic Park, it's like, yeah, last time I read it, I was in college. It's been a long time, so that'll be fun to read it again. And like I was reading it with somebody else too, kind of like doing a dumb, cheap book club.
Okay.
But it's fun to go back and read that book. Like the thing that stood out the most to me was Dr. Wu, who is a pretty forgettable character in the first Jurassic Park movie. Obviously, he's like a relatively important character for Jurassic World. But then going back to the first book, it's funny because even Dr. Wu in that first book is super, super in favor of more genetic engineering. Like, hey, we can make these. There's no pressure to make these actually dinosaurs because nobody knows what dinosaurs are like. We can make them more docile or make them bigger, make them smaller. We can cultivate them to exactly what we want, which is ultimately kind of his role that he's pushing in Jurassic World as well.
Yeah.
So you got to wonder how much of that was taken even from the original book. They mined so much from that original book for Lost World and Jurassic Park 3. And I guess I didn't realize or I forgot that they also mined it for Jurassic World.
And then everyone complained that like, oh, you're bringing back this idiot character who didn't do anything. You're just making it, like this cheap tie-in. But
Right,
it was
right.
actually there.
He was there. He
Yeah.
died a grisly death from a velociraptor in the first book, but still, he was
whatever.
there.
I just assumed when I saw you reading that book, that part of you was just like, I'm kind of known as the Jurassic Park guy, and recite. I'm running out of movie lines to recite, so I need to go to the book and just mine those.
Get more obscure
Yeah.
with it. Yeah.
Well, as Dr. Wu said,
Okay.
Right, guys? I don't know, Joe. You're a big reader.
yeah, I'm not lately. I'm not really. I just finished The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman.
Cool.
And I like that.
How's his writing trajectory doing? Is he still impressive?
Yeah, I mean, I've always enjoyed him, but I've never quite been the same, as, I mean, he has a rabid following,
Yeah.
and I've never been one of those. Like I've liked a lot of stuff he's written and not liked some of it. So I don't know. I like this one.
Okay.
I mean,
Perfect.
I'm sorry. I don't have a lot to say about that.
Jeff, tell us everything about your personal life.
I'm reading The Mist.
Is that true?
No, of course not. Only Tim would read that.
Tim started
and
hovering
then
off of his
bore
dumb
everyone
chair.
else about it.
I really like
3
Stephen
years.
King's The Mist.
There's something in the mist.
No,
You're an asshole. All you've been doing is chiding me the entire time.
I'm glad I got you with that one.
Hey.
No, I'm in the middle of the Game of Thrones
Yeah, no
books
one
and not
cares.
reading them very quickly. So
Is it tough to go from the show to the books? Do you constantly have those characters in your head?
no, I think I did it in the right order. I'm glad that I watched the show first because I think there are some certain pivotal scenes that I'm really glad that I saw first. But then, there's so much more detail in the books that those still kind of feel new in their own right. So.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to, once the show is done, like 20 years from now when I'm really jonesing for some new Game of Thrones, to go back and read the books then and just have this deeper dive into all of those stories. And maybe
sure
they'll be out by then.
They'll have plenty of spin-off series and stuff like
Yeah.
that. The Hound Chronicles.
I guarantee they're going to do some movie prequel or something like that once the show's done. But by the way, spoilers for the last Game of Thrones season are going around pretty hot and heavy. Have you guys? It's
People don't care anymore. It's so rude.
it's
Internet
just
culture
game
is-
on for Twitter
Yeah.
and Facebook. That
Cool
crap
it.
is everywhere.
Cool it, everybody. Everyone just wants to prove they're part of like the in the know.
Yeah, that stuff came out like right after it happened too. It's not like this buffer window where it's like, okay, is it all right to talk
Right.
about? Like some places were spoiling it immediately.
And I understand the audience is so much bigger, but I was so blown away by the book readers that did not give a hint that was going to happen. Not even a peep. And then the second it's in the show, blah, every article in the world is showing pictures of everything that spoils it.
Yeah. Woof.
Anyways.
Jerks.
It's a fast read. Is The Mist by Stephen King. I recommend it.
No, you do,
It's more of a
too.
novella. But I've been perpetually in the middle of a book called On Monsters, which is just like going back from like the roots of monsters and mythology and religion and stuff like that. And it's a very thorough, exhaustive read. It's not the most colorful in the world, so I don't know if it's really grabbed my attention, but we'll see. I have a copy of the book Wool, which maybe I'll give that a crack. I don't know. It's supposed to be a good sci-fi. It was a gift.
Crack that wool.
Yeah, crack that wool. All right, let's keep on trucking here. Gary from Alabama. Hello, GI Podcast. I sent a variation of this question around E3, but it was apparently lost among the more topical topics. Anyway,
you, Tim.
the gist of it is it possible for an action-adventure game to be fun throughout without the main character racking up a world record body count? This stems from games like Uncharted and Tomb Raider painting their heroes as an every man or every woman, but they each kill a small army on the way to the conclusion. As far as I know, it is never touched on in Uncharted, whilst Tomb Raider makes a fairly large deal about Lara having to take human life. But about 5 minutes later, she's massacred a platoon of soldiers. Even if all the kills are in self-defense, I don't see how any court in the world wouldn't throw the book at Nathan Drake for being a notorious thief and mass murderer. Maybe that's how Uncharted 4 ends.
Just
Thanks
like
for everything.
Seinfeld?
Yeah, so basically, the question is, like, I hear a lot of criticism about, like, or a decent amount of criticism about the whole ludonarrative dissonance thing where it's like, oh, likable protagonists, and then they're just murdering everybody, just so many people.
Right.
But I'd never really given it thought to, like, well, would those games be fun without that? Like, is there an alternative?
Yeah, they would. That's the least interesting part to me to Uncharted.
Well, what do you
Has
do in
been the
Uncharted if not that?
combat? It's the exploration and adventures and, running through a temple as it's all
I'm with you.
falling
I've
down.
never been into the shooting, but you need to have some sort of gameplay loop to keep you in there and keep the variety instead of
guess.
just the platforming section followed by story followed by
But
platforming
I
section.
think if a developer set out and was like, okay, we're not going to put that in, they could come up with,
well, what about
interesting
what about
things.
fighting robots? There we go, like Enslaved, right? Aren't you fighting robots in Enslaved?
Yeah. You
Just
played
make
a lot of
everything
robots.
robots is my solution.
This does bring me back real quick to Metal Gear from earlier, which is not exactly the kind of, swashbuckling stuff that he's talking about. But the Phantom Pain still treats like non-lethal as sort of the correct way to approach the situation.
The
Like,
leave no trace kind of.
yeah, like you can go in there and gun people down. That is an option for you, but like you get greater bonuses, greater rewards, and it's like I found myself on various missions just like if I would screw it up and like, whoops, everyone knows I'm here, and it would just evolve into like some explosive firefight, I'd just restart from a checkpoint. Like that's not how I like to play that game.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's not how the game, again, like it allows for it, but it really tries to steer you more towards stealthy stuff.
Yeah, Joe's kind of hit on what I wanted to say too, which is just given the stealth option, as long as it's like landing those shots ends up being close to as satisfying as, more lethal routines. Like there's plenty of games that will give you the stealth option, but Metal Gear really nails it.
Yeah.
But yeah, as long as they do it well, I will tend to take the non-lethal route. I don't know why.
Well, and other games you've brought up just on this podcast, games like Gone Home and Until Dawn, like these aren't games that you sort of, Until Dawn is violent, but like these aren't games where you're looking through the world looking at the world down the barrel of a gun. You know? So like there are games out there that do provide that sense of like story and adventure without racking up the body count.
Yeah. Gary was, I think, specifically after action adventure, but
like specifically Uncharted and Tomb Raider without the gunplay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of an example of something like that. Who knows? There's probably a really good example out there. I think of something like almost like Brothers in a way, like
that's more adventure-y,
straight adventure-y, but there's some action moments. I thought of Eco a little bit.
Sure.
It's kind of a little bit more subdued, less spectacular.
Right. I mean, you could consider Shadow of the Colossus, I guess, an action adventure, wouldn't you?
But you're killing all those big giants and
putting them to sleep. I use the trank.
Yeah.
The
That's smart.
trank sword.
How are we doing on time, Mr. Ben Hanson?
We got maybe one more.
One more. Okay, let me make it count. I like this one. Okay. This one, I don't have the name on this one, so apologies. Oh, wait, no.
Herbert from
he
Nashville.
offers it in the first sentence. Okay. Greetings, Tim, Ben, and company. My name's Chris, and I'm writing you from Albany, New York. I just recently watched your tribute to the N64, and it was fantastic work, as one should come to expect from you guys, blah, blah, blah. Thank you so much for that.
Tim loves those.
I love how Tim reads the compliments on everyone.
Yeah, that's it.
Yada, yada, yada.
It's a great,
I'll skip through
great
right
line.
after I read all the compliments.
Okay.
Tim, you are the best. In conclusion, what do you think?
Okay, let me just draw a heart around this. Thank you, Chris. My question is this. What other times can you recall playing a game for the first time thinking that you were about to be finished, only to discover that there was even more still to enjoy? My personal favorite occurrence of that would have to be when I played through the 8 Johto gym leaders when I was 10 years old in Pokemon Gold version. I thought I was done with the game for days until I picked it up one day and discovered you could surf east of New Barktown and what's this? The entire Kanto region to play from Pokemon 1 in its entirety.
I was talking about Pokemon Silver there, Silver and Gold.
Right.
Thanks to Iwata's programming. Fun fact.
Oh, wow. Keep up the great work. Love the show. Cheers from the Empire State, Chris.
Boy.
Gentlemen.
A game that just keeps on going. Feels like almost every game.
Really?
I mean, I think of like the tank battles in Arkham Knight.
Specifically a game when you thought it was done.
You thought you were wrapping
not
up.
just a game with a lot of content, but a game where you thought it was done and then there was more.
I'll get it rolling with Okami. Okami, you can play like over 12, maybe like 15 hours, which for a game like that would be a totally reasonable length. And you fight this giant boss, like the boss of the game, or so it was laid out. And then it just turns out that was like you're 1/5 or 1/4 of the way in, and then Okami just goes and goes and goes. Like, in my opinion, 30 hours, I think Okami is about what I played. I might be stretching it a little bit, but it was a lot of Okami, a little too much in my opinion, but I still really like that game. I thought it was going to end way earlier.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I always think of like Xenoblade. Just goes on.
Like you thought you were finished at a certain point and there was a lot more?
Yeah, you think so. Where it's like, okay, you're on Bionis, you move on to Mechanist. I think it'll wrap up there, but then there's still so much more of that game.
Yeah, Bravely Default was like that too. Where it's like, you figure you have like these 5 shards or whatever. I can't remember what the plot was, but you had to get like these 5 things, and then it's like, okay, redo that loop like 10 more times because you're stuck in a time rift or whatever. I guess that's a much more negative one. It sounds like he was happy about the surprise, but yeah.
For me, going back to Metal Gear again, this is like the most blatant fake out is in Peace Walker. You actually get credits. Like,
that's right.
Like you finish the game and you get a conclusion that really doesn't leave you with a ton of questions.
Yeah.
And then you keep playing and you keep doing operations, and then you get the real sort of final boss
It was
fight.
like with pause and stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
right.
and that is like the first time you get it. You even get the hint that like, oh, I guess Paz is a bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Post
that.
credits.
Yeah, you have to chase around Zadornov forever.
Exactly.
And
Yeah. You have to unlock these weird like Zadornov missions, and and then you fight Paz in a giant Metal Gear, and then you're like, oh. And you just had no idea that was even remotely coming because like the story that is put in front of you is concluded after the first credit sequence.
Right.
But then there's easily another 10 hours,
my
I think, of like after that to get to the next one.
way too much. I think that's when I just started watching YouTube videos. But
It's definitely the way to go. Again, before Metal Gear Solid 5, definitely check out the YouTube version of Peace Walker.
other than that, one that came to mind was Red Dead Redemption, but not in the way that like there's a ton more to do afterwards, but like what you could potentially miss
Right.
out on
Right.
is still huge. And then Ocarina of Time, I hadn't played a lot of Zelda games at that point. I kind of went back and played a bunch of them, but like I was just taking it at face value that as young Link, I'm going to go and get these 3 stones. And just like you were mentioning with the, like collecting the things in Bravely Default, it's like, oh, I got the number of things you said I needed to go get. That's it. And then it's, of course, after that happens, like the game opens up with adult Link and stuff. I didn't really know anything about the game. So,
Oh man, I was this is kind of a negative one for me is that like I did a similar thing in Twilight Princess where it's like in Twilight Princess you get I forget what all the MacGuffins are, but like you assemble something and that takes a good long time and then it's like, oh, you got 5 of them, now go get 10 of a different thing. And it's like,
Are you having fun yet? Zelda, right?
yeah. Anyway, but I mean, and it was a good game and stuff. But I think, as Tim touched on earlier, some games just like with Okami maybe are just more isn't always better.
Right.
Yeah. I'm with Irita, though. I love that moment in Pokemon Silver where you go back to the original world and like see everything except all the gym leaders are older. Some have switched over to like their sister now controls the gym.
Yeah.
And then you
Oh,
go
cool.
back and fight the main character Red from the first game.
that's great.
I think he's just like up in a mountain.
It's
Just
like- it's-
super, super powerful.
It's like
Okay,
the ending
yeah.
to Diablo.
yeah.
I hear that a lot about like him brought up in the same breath as like Final Fantasy's like ultimate weapon
Exactly.
things and stuff that like Trainer Red is
Yep.
up there. Is that like Ash from the show? Is that
It is.
the
I mean, they don't
idea?
call him Ash, but yeah, he is the same. So I think God, I forget if he has a Pikachu. I think he might. He definitely has a Charizard and stuff.
Awesome.
But he's just some like badass Pokemon trainer up in the
Exactly.
mountain.
Yeah.
Well, so keep the emails coming for next week. The email of the week is going to go to Gary, talking about just like other ways to sort of spice up action adventure games without necessarily all the the gunplay. And you can send those emails to podcast@GameInformer.com.
Cool.
But other than that,
You know what we should do?
what's that?
We should do something we forgot to do last week, which
is that?
is plug stuff on the website.
Oh, sure.
So just letting you guys know now, Jeff and Joe, if you have something on the website that you'd like to draw some eyeballs to, not necessarily yours, but it could be something to check out. Like I would plug our Mario Maker content now, Super Mario Maker. We have an early version of that game, so we've been streaming it. We did a test chamber of it, and judging for the amount of screams that I've heard coming from the studio, it sounds like that game is really entertaining and just absolutely insane. So definitely check that
That's
out.
a good one.
I'm going to interrupt you and plug Joe's own feature that he wrote about if you haven't played any of the Metal Gear games, here's what you should know for Metal Gear Solid 5.
I
Because
like
I've
that.
only played the second one,
Yeah.
and so all of that stuff is new info to me, and that's exactly what I wanted going into it.
And when I start talking about this, like, I'm so surprised. In my mind, like, Metal Gear is just one of those series that has this huge fan base, and I keep forgetting about the sort of like new players that are coming to it. The most popular question that I've gotten, or the most common question, is like, "Hey, I haven't played Metal Gear before. Can I play 5?" And the short answer is, yeah, but you're missing out on some stuff.
Can't wait.
But if this feature I wrote sort of at least tries to give the baseline, like I try to not get bogged down in too much of the lore and just the
Right.
basic, like, hey, this is who's who. Then you can pretty much go in and have a good
Also, I appreciated that feature since you finished Metal Gear Solid 5. It's kind of like, last time on Game of Thrones, and they show the recap, and it's like, why did they show that scene in there? There's a little
Right.
bit of that going on with that
Yeah,
guide. Where it's
and
like,
I-
I bet this is going to be relevant.
I try to not spoiler too much. Some of anything that could be remotely considered a spoiler in there, I think fans who've been watching the trailers have kind of figured out more or
Right.
less.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Yeah. Otherwise, I was going to point to the Super Mario Maker content as well, because it's been a blast watching those two try to I don't know, fumble through some of those levels. They're tough though, you know. They
Tell you what if I let you take that one and I picked a new one?
go for it.
And we just keep this going all day. How about I plug what we're doing next week, where we're going to have a very special episode of the Game Informer show, where I'm going to be flying out to Las Vegas, beautiful Nevada, for the GameStop Expo Managers Conference thingy. So I'm flying out there with Andy Mack and Reiner and Kimberly Wallace, and we're going to have an hour-long live show that's going to be Wednesday, 3:30 to 4:30 Pacific. If you want to tune in there, I guess it's going to be on GameStop's channel, but then we're also going to rip it out, and that'll be the Game Informer show for that week. Will be us talking about what's going to be at that convention. Most importantly, we're also going to reveal the next cover story and talk about it a little bit on stage. So it'll be a real interesting time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Exciting.
Yeah. So
You didn't tell us we could plug things in the future, though. So
what do you
that
want to plug
doesn't
in the
count.
future?
I don't know.
Terminators?
Half-Life 3 reveal. It'll happen sooner or later.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll
about
write
that.
something.
Oh,
about
Jeff M's big Half-Life 3 reveal. That's right.
Yeah.
it.
All right.
Yeah, sounds good,
awesome.
man. Well, that's it for this week's Game Informer show. We hope you enjoyed it. Send any feedback to podcast@gameinformer.com and tune in, and we'll see you next week. Bye.